Oh, you know what that means. Well, there's a couple things that it could mean, but mainly it means that we're getting into our newly constructed and premiere of our dating segment here on A Morning Cup of Joe, featuring DJ Donuts and Dennis Hong.
It's time for a little bit of love.
A little bit of love. We need some chef sound effects in there, appropriate for the radio.
My voice isn't low enough to I wish I could do that.
Well, you're back here on the mountain, 107.9 FM, and if you are curious of ways that you can listen to the show and other great shows here on the mountain, there is a free TuneIn app for your Android or Apple device. As DJ Donuts just said, download the free TuneIn app and search KRLY and save us to your favorites. Take us anywhere. Take us to work, your car, if you have that adapter, or maybe, FM transmitter going on, like I'm lucky enough to do. It's lovely. Also, there's the mountainfm.com. You can live stream from there. Check out all the shows that are going on during the week. Or, if you're old school enough, you can just go to 107.9, the last station on your dial, and check us out. All right, we're going to be transitioning into this love segment, dating segment. How would you like to
I guess dating and relationships. And
okay, right on. Well, let's get into it.
All right. So, I mentioned at the earlier on that I actually started writing because I was going through a really bad breakup, and I was posting notes on Facebook just as a way to get stuff off my chest, and that's how the freelance writing career kind of came about. Basically, but at the same time, I've always been kind of a sarcastic person, and so when I found Cracked, that was a cool outlet for me, and so my writing has sort of become a twofold, so to speak, where I've continued with my dating and relationship writing, and I do freelance writing for that as well, but then I also do comedy writing. So now my personal tagline is that I'm a comedy and relationships writer, which may or may not be redundant, depending on your perspective.
So are you writing the next Sleepless in Seattle movie? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe Failure to Launch too?
Yeah.
Maybe he wouldn't be able to tell us if he was, though.
That's true. That's very true.
All right, so this comes from your website, correct?
No, this one I want to talk about actually was published on thefrisky.com.
Oh, okay.
And if you haven't heard of The Frisky, it's kind of like cosmopolitan.com. It's mainly actually a women's site. I mean, there are some men that read it, but it's mainly targeted towards women. So the way I can describe it is think of Cosmopolitan, but a little bit snarkier. Maybe a little bit more biting than Cosmo.
I admit I've read a few articles in the Cosmo magazines, and it is true. Every magazine that you see has sex written on the cover, extremely big, bold, colorful. Every magazine cover.
Wait, what's a magazine?
There you go. So, and actually, maybe we can talk about this again, because I actually wrote a Cracked article ripping on Cosmopolitan. A couple years ago as well.
We might have to bring that up sometime.
We can talk about that one. So anyway, this article is for The Frisky, and it's basically harsh online dating realities.
Okay.
And should we start?
Just
get right into it?
Go for it.
Okay, sounds good. So I have to admit, I first started trying out online dating. I think it was back in 2005. So I've been doing the online dating thing for a while now, and since 2005, I've had a couple of serious relationships. So it's not like I've been continuously online dating, but and I have a girlfriend now, and I've been with her for a year and a half. So obviously, I'm not online dating anymore.
Do you have to deactivate all your sites once you get a girlfriend?
Well, we actually met online.
Oh.
So we talked about that, and like I just kind of let my subscription expire and haven't thought about it in a while now. So I guess just to clarify. So just to clarify, I mean, Melissa and we did meet online, so I do have the online dating sites to thank for us getting together. And I do have to say, I guess before we get into this, I do want to preface that online dating can be kind of cool. I mean, what I liked about online dating is that you do get the opportunity to meet people you would probably never run into in real life. You know, Melissa, she's a paralegal. I'm in education and writing, and so, you know, unless we like randomly met at a bar someplace.
And you borrowed her pen or something, maybe at a bank?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, I mean, she works at a law firm, so yeah, so it's not that's what I mean. It's not something that I would. She's not someone that I probably ever would have crossed paths with, and we do actually have very, very different interests. It's cool because like we get along on a kind of a deep level, but we do have very different interests, which I love. I actually love the fact that, you know, I can get her into my interests and she can get me into hers. But my point is, I really can't imagine any place that we could have met in real life other than online. So I do have online dating to thank for that, and I am grateful for online dating. But at the same time, having done it on and off for about 7 years, I realized that online dating, you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And I think you have to accept that it's flawed. And I think the problem is that a lot of people, when they start online dating, they're kind of doing so from a point of desperation, where it's kind of like, oh, I'm so sick of trying to meet people in real life. You know, all the guys I meet at bars are douchebags. It's time, you know, I'm going to try online dating. So they're coming into it with this attitude that...
Sorry, throwing one on you.
No, that's okay. So I'm getting messages, and I understand. So they're coming into that with this attitude that, you know, this is like my last resort, and I think if you do that, you're just gonna doom yourself. So
don't go at it in desperation.
Exactly.
Basically.
Don't think of online dating. This is. I think when I started taking this attitude, it really helped. But don't think of online dating as an alternative to real life dating. I would say think of it as a supplement, as something extra that you can add to your dating life. But I would say by all means, still try to meet people in real life, because once we get into these harsh online dating realities, I think you'll probably realize why you definitely want to take online dating with a grain of salt and not depend on it completely.
Okay. So. Well, let's kick off the list, if you will.
All right. So the first thing I noticed when I first started on Match.com, and the first time I got it, I'm like, holy crap. I can say crap, right?
Yeah, it's all good.
So I just said it again.
even if you couldn't, you already
too late
did,
now.
So.
Yeah. So holy crap, there's so many people on here, and you just it's like
overwhelming.
A menu of women. It literally is. You're looking through a menu.
There's singles in your area that want to meet you.
Exactly.
I know, right?
Yeah, there you go. You just have to call. So it was kind of overwhelming, but it was also kind of cool because I'm like, well, there's so many people on there, and of course, all the online dating sites love to advertise how many millions and millions of people,
and all their testimonials.
Exactly. But the reality is that a lot of these profiles are inactive, or they're not. They're expired, basically, or they're people who. And most of the online dating sites do this, where you can sign up for free and you can view other people's profiles for free, but then you can't send any messages.
All of a sudden, you start getting messages, but you can't read, or maybe you're able to read some of them. You can't respond.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. So the reality is that there are a lot of people on the sites who are non-paying members. So if you are on there thinking like, wow, there's so many people on there, well, a good chunk of them are not going to be. A good chunk of them are not going to be active at all, and others are not going to be paying members, so they can't respond to. And OkCupid, which is actually one of the free online dating sites, they wrote a pretty scathing article a few years ago where they calculated, and these are OkCupid's numbers, so you can verify them on your own. I can't attest to the validity of them, but they did back up their numbers pretty well with statistics. So basically, they calculated that over 90% of the profiles that you see on any given online dating site, like a pay online dating site, are probably going to be inactive, which is kind of daunting if you think about it. Like 1 in 10 people are going to be people that you can actually respond to. So that's the first.
That's interesting.
Reality.
I actually hadn't thought about that when thinking about all the online sites and stuff. I didn't really think about the inactive profiles.
Yeah.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So it's not. and I think the first thing, and I would say as a guy, this is the first thing that you notice is you start sending messages, and at first you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. You're sending messages, and then you get this abysmal response rate, and it's disheartening because you're like, wow, man, I'm sending all these messages, and I'm getting like, 1 in 10 people responding.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, if you're getting 1 in 10 people responding, that's probably
About
a
average?
decent average, because some of those are not active. So that's one thing. The first thing you have to accept is that there are probably going to be some people that are not going to be able to respond to you, or are just not around anymore, and the sites are going to leave these profiles up because they want.
The
they want you to
numbers
think.
look good.
Yeah, they
The
want you to
numbers
think
look
that
good.
there's more. And obviously they're not. Let's face it. If you're an online dating site, your best interest isn't to hook people up, right? Because if they meet somebody, they get married, they're not going to use your site anymore. So your best interest is to keep people coming
It's what
back.
makes the world go round.
So
money.
kind of keep teasing them
Yeah.
that they have opportunities.
Interesting fact: a 47-year-old man, who I'm not going to name on air, has spent $65,000 on matchmaking services, has been on 250 blind dates, and is still single.
Yeah, go figure. And
Wow.
I think those are the people that are the best online dating customers, are the people who are perpetually single, or dating,
Or the ones that have a
yeah.
lot of money to spend.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
All right. Well, let's go. Let's move on to your next point on your article, The 6 Harsh Realities of Online Dating.
all right. So the next point is there are some sketchy people out there, and the online dating sites can't do much about them, and they also won't do much about them, actually. And this one, there's actually been quite a few lawsuits. First off, everybody knows that there are scammers out there. You get emails you get spam about
Some
from
African
Nigeria.
prince.
Yeah, there you go, some Nigerian prince. And there are scammers on online dating sites too, and it's kind of sad because with these scammers, they're really preying on people when they're most vulnerable, and so there are a lot of stories out there with these actually men and women who are sort of
Caught up
I
in
guess
it.
they're kind of desperate for love. I guess that's the nicest way to put it, is that they've had a lot of bad experiences, and then all of a sudden they meet somebody that they think is just amazing, is perfect for them, but then this person might be going through some financial difficulties right now, so they ask for, it's like, hey, I really hate to do this, but
I think it happens a lot more with, especially out of country.
yeah.
I was in South Korea for a year
Yeah.
while I was in the military, and did a little bit of online, dating type stuff, and I think it's a little more geared towards, out of country,
Yeah.
trying to use the people in the United States to monetarily, basically, or maybe even
Yeah.
to
yeah.
get into the United
Yeah,
States.
yeah, definitely.
There was a couple incidents was it the Christian Mingle site that
Yeah,
had
I'm not sure.
somebody, it was in the news not too long ago, a dude that was preying on people and meeting them and ended up getting arrested and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
there's actually a lot of cases of that.
That's kind of a little bit different,
yeah.
not money related, but
Yeah. I mean, some of it, like you see it on like social networking sites as well, and so, yeah, there are people that will scam suckers looking for love
Yeah.
out of a lot of money,
Darn it.
and
he's like, I'm going to stop signing up now.
sorry. Well, you could be the one scamming.
Ah.
Sorry, did I just
you
blow your
caught
scheme?
him.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you go.
man, now I'm
What's
gonna
your
have to
online
leave the
handle?
country. I have to leave the country now.
Yeah. Carlos Danger.
Ah.
Actually, that'd be a pretty good name.
You should go for that.
Yeah.
See if that's available.
It actually is not anymore.
Oh, goodness.
It would be a Donuts Danger.
Dangerous donuts.
Dangerous
Dangerous.
Donuts. There you go.
There we go.
Dangerous Donuts.
We're reading through the list of 6 harsh realities of online dating here with Dennis Hong. And you want to move on to the next one?
Actually, let me just wrap up the
okay.
last one. And,
Continue.
and really, in case your spirit isn't quite crushed yet. So in 2011, Match.com finally announced that they would start implementing background checks. So woohoo, that's
That's really
great,
gonna
right?
Wow.
Well, the only problem is that even one site representative said, and I quote, "These checks may help in certain instances. They remain highly flawed, and it is critical that this effort does not provide a false sense of security to our members." So basically, a lot of these sites, notably Match.com, they've been involved in a lot of lawsuits about this, and the reality is they stipulate in their terms of service that they cannot, nor do they have a responsibility to do anything about the scammers, about the inactive
They
profiles.
really don't, because they're providing you the site basically. They're not mediators
and
over
that's
what you say.
and that makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, you can't expect them to scour every single profile.
Yeah.
But
That's the NSA show.
there you go. The NSA dating site.
Yeah.
That's where everybody's background is squeaky clean. So the reality is you definitely have to be very careful if you're going to try online dating, because
Absolutely.
there are people that are kind of sketchy out there.
Cool.
Okay, so then moving on. Next one, the person you meet may not be the person you are corresponding with.
Get out of town.
This one is kind of interesting now. And I'm not just talking about the fact that people will post pictures that are like 10 years old when they were, 50 pounds lighter, or their hairline was 5 inches lower on their forehead.
What was that movie that he posted his picture, and he was a young army dude, and he ended up meeting somebody from online dating, and he ended up being an old man when they met? Remember that?
I don't remember.
I don't remember which movie that was, but I remember
It
that
obviously
scene.
stuck in your head, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the scene.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, it is pretty common. I think I didn't even mention this in the article because I didn't think it was worth mentioning, because I think everybody knows, but everybody lies. Everybody likes to exaggerate
That's
a
what
little
the
bit.
internet's for.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Nobody lies.
No, the internet is completely true. If I read it on the internet, it's got to be.
I read that on the
State Farm,
internet.
Yeah.
Like the State Farm commercial? The guy who says he's a French male model or something?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
He's like, wee wee.
So anyway, there's a whole industry that's sprouted up now where you can hire somebody to write your online dating profile for you, and even do your correspondence, like when you're first emailing and when you first start messaging back and forth. Because the reality is, online dating is time consuming. It takes a lot of time to look through profiles, send out those the initial messages, and then if you get a response, to correspond with this person, you go back and forth a few times, then maybe you graduate to a phone call, and then finally you graduate to a coffee date, and so on and so forth. So there are people you can hire now who, if you're not the most eloquent person, you can just pay somebody to write your profile for you.
He's Googling people's names right now.
There are a lot of people on my site. You can look these people up. I gave them free advertisement, and then some people will even actually do the interactions with, as in email back and forth for you.
Wow.
So there are ones that'll kind of like help you write a dating profile, and then once you do that, you're on your own. But there are others where if you want to pay them more money, they will send messages and correspond, and then set up the date. And then once it's time to set up the date, they'll give you all the information on this one person, and then you go on the date. Which, if you think about it, if you're a busy person, I mean, and you have the money to spare, I think that's a great idea, because you just outsource your dating life. Basically, you hire somebody to take care of all of that, and when it finally comes time to meet somebody, that's when you take it up. So be careful, because these services do seem to be gaining traction and getting more popular. So who knows? I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think this is that big of a deal, because if you still meet the person and you do end up feeling like you have a connection for them, with them, that's great. But they might not quite be as eloquent and charming in real life as you think.
As I am, I know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there you go.
Maybe you should try to sign up to be one of the dudes.
Anyways.
All right, so we're going through the list of 6 harsh realities of online dating, an article written by Dennis Hong here in the studio.
Okay.
And we're continuing on.
All right. Next 2 are the ones that I think are the most disheartening. So number 4, online dating makes you shallow. And this is not me just saying that. There's actually verified scientific evidence for this. But if you're curious, I'm not going to go into too much detail because it would take a while to explain, but it's called the paradox of choice. So once again, the paradox of choice. And what that says is that if you have too many options, you get overwhelmed, your brain gets overwhelmed, it can't handle it, so you end up fixating on very, very superficial characteristics. And what that translates to, and they've seen this, they have done studies with online daters, and they've seen this, is that when you're in real life, if you're meeting people in real life, you just can't physically meet that many people at the same time. So you may talk to them, and maybe they have some sort of weird flaw, like a big scratch on their nose from their cat.
Hate when that happens.
Yeah, they have
I'll bet you they look so stupid all the time.
Yeah, they
too.
have some sort of scar on their face, or maybe they have a little bit of a receding hairline or a hair lip or whatever, buck teeth, some weird superficial characteristic. But you know what?
You just pretty much named me.
Yeah.
All right there.
Well, I'm
so
looking at you right now, so I'm just
described me.
describing you. It's like,
Thank you. I know I'm so
glad I could
appealing.
help. So you meet these people, and then maybe you start talking to them. You're like, you know what? They're kind of cool, and I might as well get to know them. You give them a chance. Online, though, because the next person, their profile is right next to the person with the hair lip, you're going through and you have so many profiles to screen through, like you just don't have the time. You don't have the time to go look through everyone in detail. So you just start clicking through and you're like, all right, nope, too bad, nope, too short,
kind of seeing through people for their personality.
Yeah.
That goes away really quickly when it comes to online dating.
And I think we'd all hopefully, if we're good people, like to think that we're not superficial, but by the very nature of online dating, it makes you superficial. It turns you into a superficial person because that's the only way that you can get through online. So, again, look up Paradox of Choice, and if you're curious, look up all the different studies they've done on that. But that is a verified fact that
very interesting.
That online dating makes you superficial, which then, if you couple that with the next point, which is online dating warps your sense of intimacy. And if you take these two together, then that's when it can really mess you up. But what they found is that when you online date, you go through this stage where you're emailing back and forth with this other person, and as I've already mentioned before, as you can probably figure out, when you're just at the emailing stage, it's easier to put on this facade. It's easier to pretend that you're much more charming, or
it's always easier to live behind the keyboard.
Exactly.
Especially talking to
when you're internet
the opposite sex is a lot easier these days. Even text messaging.
Exactly, because you have time to think of your response. You can really think.
You're not put on the spot. You don't have that awkward silence of. And you're not face to face because there is really no emotion besides LOL and smiley faces shown in writing. Yeah. So I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I respond all the time instantly.
Yeah. A little happy face. Exactly. So what happens though is that when you start corresponding with somebody, you start kind of building them up in your mind. You've never met this person, but based on the online communication, you start thinking that you have this really deep connection to them. So what happens is that when you finally do actually meet them, well, on some level you might be kind of disappointed, but then on another level, what could end up happening is that you start deceiving yourself. You start thinking, oh, we have this connection. And ironically, what happens is that you end up thinking you have this deep connection to somebody that you really should not be with. That is just not,
because you put them on a pedestal, and then you set yourself up for disappointment, because they don't live up to your expectations that were ridiculous from the beginning, basically.
Yeah. So let's put those two together now. It makes you online dating makes you shallow, it makes you superficial, and it warps your sense of intimacy, and it causes you to, or it will encourage you to make what you think are deep connections to people that you really don't have deep connections with. Put those two together. That's kind of a
two very good, great points. And to this very last point, bro, we kind of
I know we're running out of time here. So race relations are horrible in online dating, and
why is that exactly?
I think most people do. I think we'd all like to think that. Yeah, I'm trying to phrase this in a politically correct way.
I was thinking stereotypes.
Yeah. I think we all like to believe that we're again not superficial, that we're deep people, that we're open-minded. But when it comes down to it, I think we all have our certain preferences for physical appearance, and if you think about how, and that could be shaped by the media as well. And so, if you look at media, the people who are seen as the most attractive people are invariably white.
Kind of like Amy Lee.
Yeah. So
just name dropping now.
Yeah. So what studies have shown is that there is definitely a white man's advantage if you are
interesting.
Where
you should have no problem.
There you go. That is the one ethnicity where you get considerably more responses than
Interesting.
anyone. Yeah, and
Is there
you can see-
statistics? Is
Yeah,
there any
you know
kind
what?
of
There's
numbers
another
behind
one.
that?
There's another article by OkCupid, and if you go look up OkCupid and race, you can see the whole table. There's no way I can go through all the numbers.
Yeah.
But basically, the gist of it is that white people have a lot more luck online dating, and they have got a lot more responses.
That was great. Those are some good points for online dating advice. That was 6 harsh online dating realities that you should be aware of. And that article was by Dennis Hong, and that was written this year, a couple months
Yeah,
back.
just a few months ago.
Right on. We thank you so much, Dennis, for being on the
no
show.
problem.
It was so much fun to have
Yeah.
you live in studio.
Happy to be here.
Cool. I hope you will join us again,
Definitely.
maybe within a few weeks or whenever is available for you.
Okay, sounds good.
I'd like to thank all our listeners out there for listening to this week's edition of A Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts. And here's some final thoughts from DJ Donuts himself.
Mr. Shattuck over there, I guess I could call him eventually. He promised you guys an inspirational quote or two, so I have a few here.
Okay. Thank
Health
you.
is the greatest gift. Contentment is the greatest wealth. Faithfulness, the best relationship. That was by Buddha.
Wow.
Yes. Also, I have one more that I would like to share. This is from Aristotle. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light.
Interesting.
You wanted some inspirational quotes? There you go.
Nailed it. A little inspiration for the rest of your Saturday. Whatever you're doing, be safe out there. Again, happy birthday to my little sister, turning 21 today. Be safe. If you don't know what to do today, I highly advise the Santee Drive-In. Go check out the movies. You can visit their website online by Googling it. It's a phenomenal place and very cheap. Do by yourself, with your girlfriend, your family, your boyfriend, whatever you may have.
The person you met online.
Exactly.
There we go.
Exactly. All right. Thanks again. We're going to wrap up today's show. Please join us next week. Same time, same place, right here on 107.9 FM, The Mountain. Take care, you guys.
It's the final countdown!
Don't miss your Morning Cup of Joe featuring DJ Donuts. Saturday morning from 6 to 10.
107.9 FM.
And the people consist of the millions